I haven't been a supporter of Cardinal George Pell throughout. What I have been in favour of is looking at the evidence, because this was one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in Australian history. A lot of people today should be ashamed of their role in the persecution, the witch hunting and the jailing for 404 days of an innocent man. It's not just this is a case, legal technicalities is won in the end. This is one where the charges were inherently implausible, and yet they were believed, and voices that spoke against this conviction were hounded down. It is a disgrace, and we will have a long accounting about this, or we should. Victoria Police, for going through a trawling exercise looking for complaints against Cardinal Pell, which previous miscarriages of justice have said was exactly the kind of process where you do lead to people getting false memories or coming forward with false accusations. The Victorian Court of Appeal, which in a 2-to-1 decision threw out Pell's initial claim for an appeal, they too must be looking at their own conscience as to why they did so. And of course there's the media, not least the ABC, which spoke as one voice against George Pell, and to this very morning were making false accusations against him. There was a witch hunt in this country, and we need to look at why we let that happen, how many institutions were part of it, and why so few people spoke up in defence of a man, as I say, who is innocent, who could not have committed the crimes as alleged. And I think this is, some people say, a great day for justice because justice won out in the end. I say, wait, here is a man whose career has been ruined, whose reputation has been ruined, who probably cannot go out in safety because of these false accusations, and has had his savings completely gone. His friends have had to dig deep in process after process to defend him. Their money won't be returned. And he has spent 404 days in jail for a crime that he could not possibly have committed.
Welcome back to Quarantine Apologetics, defending the faith while under lockdown. Yesterday, the verdict came for Cardinal Pell. Cardinal Pell, who was on trial for raping 2 choir boys. He had been convicted by a court. The Court of Appeal rejected his appeal. It went all the way, in a split decision, 2-1. It went all the way up to the Australian High Court and unanimously 7-0 quashed the allegations. So Cardinal Pell is a free man. It had to go to the Australian High Court, and they ruled unanimously 7-0. How come that was the opposite of what the Court of Appeal was? They ruled 2-1. And Pell, the Catholic Church has a lot of money, they were able to continue paying for his legal defense to appeal to the Australian High Court. And thankfully they did. Now, why did the Court of Appeal, the first court, I don't know what the official name for it is, but rule 2-1 against him? Why? Because obviously there are homosexual priests out there who do these things to young boys, and it's very disturbing. And the thing is, not all these priests get what they deserve. Not all these priests get what they deserve. It's unfortunate, and there's several reasons for that, but the point is a lot of them get away scot-free. And I think what these 2 judges in the Court of Appeal did was say, look, as a token of goodwill to those who were abused or raped and not and their priest didn't see justice, we're going to give you Cardinal Pell. Here you go. But of course, that's not justice. That is not justice in the slightest. Secular justice is actually a biblical principle. Go back to Exodus 23, verses 1-9 talks about secular law. And it says, verses 2 and 3 says, do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. And do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. Now, of course, this whole thing with Pell was not a rich poor thing, but it was. There was a lynch mob against him. The enemies of the church want to see her go down, and instead of they go for Cardinal Pell. The details against Pell were so pathetic. I'm not going to go over them here. You can look them up on Google. They were so pathetic that that there was no way that they were possible. And as soon as it went to the High Court of Appeal, it didn't go anywhere. So it was a violation of biblical justice. And now, going forward, and by the way, I'm just going to say something. There's this movement out there. Now, I sympathize with the victims who have this horrible thing happen to them. But the people that are victims call themselves survivors. You are not a survivor. Your life was never in danger. Stop calling yourselves survivors. There's this organization called SNAP. By the way, SNAP, the Australian division of SNAP, was so disappointed in the Cardinal Pell thing. SNAP means Survivor Network of Those Abused by Priests. And I'm pretty sure it's them who started this whole, we're survivors. You're not survivors, you're victims. And I sympathize with you, and I want the priests that did that to you in jail, but you're not survivors, so please don't call yourself that. And of course, I remember the Pennsylvania Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, just kept calling them survivors. And anyway, the point is that there's a lynch mob against Pell. And the thing is, these allegations came 20 years or 19 years after the fact. So 19, 20 years after the fact, and luckily they were able to, the evidence was the routine they did around the church. The whole 20 years after the fact thing is so hard. What did you do yesterday? You can probably remember what you did yesterday. What did you do the day before that? Now, you might have to think about it, but you could probably remember. 3 days ago? That's pretty hard. 47 days ago? You have no idea what you did, unless you got married that day. So, I mean, when you come forward 20 years later, it's like this thing with Joe Biden. This person accusing Joe Biden, there may be truth, there may not, but if that actually happened to her, why didn't she file a police report? She says in her interview on Democracy Now!, my mom told me to, but I didn't do it. Well, why didn't you do it? That's a credible third party that would still have that information. There's a person my parents know. I know of him. I don't know him as well as my parents do. Who has lived in Alberta since 1997. He lived in Quebec before that. And he's getting sued. He's got a lawsuit against him of allegations that are about 25 years old. Back when he has lived in this province for over 23 years. The allegations are 26 years old, and he is being on trial for them. His name is ruined. If it's true or not, his name is ruined. He's probably going to be bankrupt, paying a lawyer across the country. Like, if someone rapes you, God forbid, this horrible crime needs justice. When someone rapes you, you go to the police the next day so they can see your bruises, so they can get CCTV footage, so they could find all the people involved and call them in to give statements. Because we all remember what we did yesterday. We don't remember what we did some random day 24 years ago. Let me share something with you. Did you see this? You see all these books here? 2 brown, 4 black, 4 green. I keep a diary. I keep a daily diary. I've kept it over 10 years. And I know what I did on most days. But not many people keep diaries. Perhaps people should, because these crazy psycho people are going to 25 years down the road, make statements that can't be proven or disproven. It's your word against theirs. And I feel so sorry for the judges, because what do? It's like 25 years. Your memory changes over time. Your memory changes over time. If you don't believe me, keep a diary for 1 month, then go and reread it. You'll be like, whoa, I thought that was that, and this was... Yeah. So, yes, I care about justice. I want to see justice done. I want to see if there's a rapist, whether he's a priest or a coach of a sports team or some schmo, I want to see justice done. And it's ridiculous when you come forward 20 years later. Come the next day when everyone knows what happened and give the statements. Because it's not your word against theirs. There's evidence on the line. They can see your bruises. They can see... I'm sorry. What does this have to do with apologetics? Well, I did point out Exodus 23 and how secular justice is a biblical value. And so, So I hope for the sake that all people who commit crimes are caught and receive the appropriate penalty. And in order to do that the best, if there's a rape, come forward the next day. God bless you all.